They burned it, rebuilt it, flooded it, and bombed it. But Paris never died. It just kept rising, turning every scar into something beautiful. But behind the Eiffel Tower and the croissants is a brutal, messy history that most people never hear about. This isn't a fairy tale about a city of lights. This is the entire story of Paris, from a muddy village on the riverbank to the beating heart of revolutions, empires, and world wars. Paris didn't start as the glamorous city you see in postcards. If you go back far enough, over 2,000 years ago, it was nothing more than a small island settlement on the Seine River. A Celtic tribe called the Parisi lived there, and they built a basic village on what is now called the Ile de la Cité, right in the center of modern-day Paris. Then the Romans came. In 52 BC, Julius Caesar conquered the area and gave it a new name, Lutetia. Roman Paris was surprisingly advanced. It had roads, aqueducts, public baths, and even an amphitheater. But it wasn't the kind of city people would travel across the world to see. It was just a functional Roman town. Important, yes, but not exactly iconic. After the fall of the Roman Empire, Paris was hit hard. The population shrank. The city suffered attacks from Germanic tribes, then from the Vikings. In the 9th century, the Vikings sailed up the Seine and raided Paris more than once. The city fought back and became stronger, building walls and fortifications. By the 12th century, Paris had started to become something more. The French kings began ruling more directly from Paris. The construction of Notre Dame Cathedral began in 1163. The University of Paris was founded around this time, and scholars from across Europe started to take notice. By the 1200s, Paris was known as a city of learning, religion, and trade. It was no longer just a local town. It was turning into the capital of a growing kingdom. But things were far from peaceful. The 100 Years' War between England and France devastated the city. Paris switched hands more than once. The plague hit. The population dropped. Crime soared. For a while, Paris became a dangerous place. Then came the Renaissance. In the 16th century, Paris was reborn again. New architecture, new ideas. Printing presses started pumping out books. The Louvre, which had been a fortress, was turned into a royal palace. But religious tensions were boiling under the surface. In 1572, the streets of Paris ran red with blood during the St. Bartholomew's Day massacre. Thousands of Protestants were killed in what began as a royal wedding celebration. It was one of the most violent episodes of religious violence in Europe's history. Even so, Paris survived, and once again, it rose. The 17th century brought grandeur. King Louis XIV, the Sun King, didn't love Paris. He actually moved his court to Versailles, but the city still benefited. New buildings, new bridges, and new institutions popped up everywhere. By the 18th century, Paris was buzzing. It was the center of Enlightenment thinking. Philosophers like Voltaire, Rousseau, and Diderot met in smoky salons and coffee houses, questioning everything about religion, monarchy, and society. They planted ideas that would soon explode, and then came the French Revolution. The people of Paris had had enough. Food was scarce, taxes were high, and the nobility was living large. The Bastille, a prison that symbolized royal tyranny, was stormed by a crowd of angry citizens. Heads rolled, literally. The guillotine became the symbol of justice. The revolution changed everything. Kings were overthrown, rights were declared, but chaos also took over. Different factions fought for control. At one point, the streets were filled with mobs. Leaders were executed, only to be replaced by new leaders who also got executed. Out of that chaos stepped a man named Napoleon Bonaparte. He promised order, and he delivered. By 1804, he crowned himself Emperor of the French. Paris became the capital of a growing empire that spread across Europe. Napoleon modernized the city. He built monuments, improved infrastructure, and reorganized the administration. But his ambition led to disaster. After years of war, defeat finally came in 1814. Paris was invaded, Napoleon was exiled, and the city, once again, had to rebuild. The 19th century was a roller coaster. Paris switched between empires, monarchies, and republics multiple times. There were revolutions in 1830 and again in 1848. The city seemed to be in a constant state of unrest. But beneath the chaos, something big was happening. In the 1850s and 60s, under Emperor Napoleon III, Paris got a complete makeover. An architect named Baron Haussmann was hired to modernize the city. And he did. Big time. He tore down the old medieval neighborhoods and built the wide boulevards, parks, and buildings that define Paris today. The goal wasn't just beauty, it was also control. Broad streets made it harder for protesters to build barricades. By the late 1800s, Paris was dazzling again. The Eiffel Tower was built for the 1889 World's Fair. It was controversial at the time, some called it ugly, but it quickly became a symbol of modernity, art, fashion, music, theater. It all flourished in what was called the Belle Époque, the beautiful era. Then came World War I. The trenches weren't in Paris, but the city felt the war. German forces got dangerously close. Parisians lived in fear of bombings. Soldiers passed through on their way to the front, and many never returned. The war ended, but peace didn't last. In 1940, during World War II, Nazi Germany invaded France and occupied Paris. It was one of the darkest chapters in the city's history. The Nazis marched down the Champs-Élysées. Jewish residents were rounded up. Resistance fighters operated in secret, risking their lives to fight back. In 1944, Paris was finally liberated. General Charles de Gaulle marched triumphantly through the streets. But the scars of war ran deep. After the war, Paris entered yet another era. The city grew. Immigrants arrived from former French colonies. The culture changed. Protests erupted in 1968, when students and workers took to the streets, demanding reform. The whole country was shaken. But again, Paris came out stronger. Today, Paris is one of the most visited cities in the world. Tourists flock to see the Eiffel Tower, the Louvre, Notre Dame, and more. But behind all that beauty is a city that's been broken and rebuilt over and over. Paris is more than just a place. It's a survivor. Every cobblestone, every alleyway, every building has a story, a revolution, a war, a fire, a flood. Paris keeps changing, but it never loses its soul. That's what makes it timeless. Watch the next video.